Hello, and welcome to Scuttlebutt, the War Movie Review Podcast. We're happy to have you with us as we take a look at films from the dawn of cinema to today. We aim to provide a raw and unapologetic review of each film's cinematography, historical accuracy, and delivery. In the process of analysis, certain details will be revealed. These spoilers are only divulged to ensure a fair assessment of each film. We head to Denmark this week with Martin Zandvliet's 2015 post-World War II epic, Land of Mine. As always, I'm joined by Mike A.
Hello.
Mike B.
Yep.
And Nate did not pass training, so that's how that went. So guys, what'd you think?
Well, I've seen it before, and I saw it when it first came out, and I was very impressed with it. I still think it's very good. It's a very I always like something that kind of shows a different perspective in this terms, for these terms, post-war type stuff, and what happened after that, because no one really thinks about that and what went into that. Obviously, yeah, after the war, there was tons of shit that needed to be cleaned up, and just the mine parts along the coastline was a tiny part of that. So, it's something that not a lot of people think about, and then also it has a sympathetic stance on the whole thing with these kids that a lot of these kids who had to do this, who were basically fodder for the German army, and now they survived. Now they have to deal with all this shit. So I think it's really interesting. It's very unique, and I think it's great.
But you, Mike?
Yeah, same thing as like it's a never really talked about story of although they talked about rebuilding Germany in this film, like I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna be a bricklayer and I'm gonna rebuild Germany. It's like, well, there's damage that's done in every country that was occupied. And this is a prime example of that shit. And yeah, I mean, it's still like I don't think those guys got all the mines, because there was reports of people walking out on the beach or just in any area where they laid mines after the war. They thought they got them cleaned up and they died or got severely dismembered.
Yeah, happened quite a bit.
Yep. And it's the same in any war, to this day, where mines are a thing. But it kind of showed a very little talked about piece of history, that they made these kids go and do this, and like they said at the end, like most of them died or got severely fucked up doing this after the war. And it's like, yeah, to an extent I can get the animosity and everything, and like you guys did this, you guys are going to clean it up, but on a human level that's not true, because they're not the ones that planted the mines. They were just wearing a uniform of the people who did. So
that's the problem. There's always guilt by association. And a lot of these kids, like you said, were drafted and had nothing to do with the north wall defenses or any of that mine laying, but wrong place, wrong time, away it goes. No, it's an interesting movie. It's a very interesting take, on a war film and everything, just being just after the war and not focusing on direct combat and everything, but the drama that comes from it. And one of my favorite quotes is that the Battle of the Falaise Pocket happened in August of 1944. It was like 3 weeks long. They cleared it out in 1964. It took exactly 20 years for them to remove all the destroyed German tanks and British armor and American armor from like a 20 square mile area of France. So that kind of just puts in perspective how insane the fighting was and how intense the ordnance uses was. Like even today you hear about, I think once or twice every year, they find a bomb and they have to evacuate people and they have to have a detonated explosion and everything. There's so much shit that's left behind. And I forget the name of it, but there's a really good post-war German movie. It's like 1946 or 47 about an ordnance unit that's like working in Hamburg, and like all the crazy dramas they have to go through to like disarm Allied bombs that are still left in all the rubble and shit. So it's pretty cool. But no, it's a very interesting movie. Very interesting take on the war. I don't know. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have too much connection to the characters and stuff. I felt like it was a bit repetitive, but that's something that you're just gonna have with this type of film. You know, it's kind of like in a way Hurt Locker, where if you don't really engineer a lot of crazy shit, then it's just kind of the same monotonous. But they did do a good job to build a plot in the story. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So like, give me an example of that, like what you're talking about. You did like the characters you thought were kind of one dimensional, basically.
yeah, I don't know. This like the relationship with the family and the kids. Just I don't know. I just wasn't for me.
Wasn't for you, yeah. Yeah, I like the sergeant character a lot. You know, I think that's really kind of the most interesting part of the film is this guy, you know, who is like a real vicious son of a bitch, you know, but and understandably hates what he's doing, but you know, eventually the humanity of everything that's going on kind of, you know, he does have an arc, is what I'm saying, which I like that with that character. I think that's a really good character. That guy actually has been in a ton of stuff. I forgot his name, the actor, but I thought that was in terms of performances and characters, I thought he was pretty strong.
And it was like the little things you could see, like with the verbiage, because initially they're so harsh with them and everything, and then it's like, okay, you're doing a good job, and yeah, it was nice to see that.
Yeah, I mean, how you cannot, you know, have sympathy for someone's twin brother being blown up in front of them. You know, that whole part where he has to calm that kid down by giving him morphine and everything like that. Like you can tell that's like weighing hard on him. And that's kind of, in my opinion, when things start to really shift for him, where he's you know, starts being more soft with them, and to a point to where he thinks that, oh, I've been too soft with them, which results in his dog dying. And that's probably why Nate didn't actually want to be on this, because he could not stand the dog being blown up.
It was hard to watch, and I knew it was coming. And yeah,
they put that dog in there, you know it's gonna happen.
My dog got a lot of treats after that. Just gonna say that. So you know, here's some hands.
That's the. Now I'll say this with the movie, that is one thing. Like there are movies where like you just know sometimes like you're dead, or like that's gonna happen, and that was in this movie, like the redheaded kid, the first casualty, the one whose arms got blown off. His first scene in the little cabin is like, when I get home, I'm going to be doing this. I'm like, oh yeah, you're totally dead. But you know, so that's just how it goes with movies sometimes. But I still think it's great. What I really love about this, and then I'll shut up and let other people talk also, is all of the little details with the German prisoners, like their uniforms, how it's all like super bare bones and shit like that. Some of them have civilian clothes on. Their hats are all stripped of their insignia and stuff. It's just like that's how it would have looked. They would not have been, you know, they would not have had like their epaulets or anything like that. I thought that was really cool. That late war stuff where everything is just so fucked, you know, when it comes to the uniforms. The only things they really have are their belts and their canteens.
Well, what else do you need if you're a POW? You know, and a mess
yeah,
kit.
but it's like I could totally see another movie doing it to where it's like the only thing they don't have are their guns. You know, I could totally see movies do that, but I like how stripped these the prisoners looked in it. You know, and again how the diversity in the uniforms, like the main German kid, he's wearing like a tropical tunic. One of the twins just has the Drillich on the work tunic, and just little things like that, like how at the end of the war, how fucked everything was that they would just have to scramble with whatever they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they put so much shit into storage during the war as they, you know, reshoot, or they issued out later war stuff. So at the very end of the war, you see insane combinations of like M36 here tunics and like Luftschultz helmets, you know, like just very interesting combinations.
One of the twins has a Luftwaffe belt buckle, you know, and his other brother doesn't. So yeah, it's like just whatever he could have found, you know, in those last few days of the war, probably.
Yeah, no, it's a good mix, you know, because then again, you expect like the prop department to only buy one of something. So it's like, oh, they're all here guys from the same platoon or something. So that was cool.
Yeah, the helmets were nice too, but they were, unfortunately, they didn't repaint them. And they're
the German helmets?
German helmets. So those were Czech Fire Brigade post-war painted helmets.
Oh, the kit, yeah, it's like a black.
They're all
color.
black. They're all black. Yep. And you can tell they've got several layers of paint on them. and it's like, just give it a spritz of Feldgrau. You don't have to put a decal on it. You don't have to do that. It's an M42 or even an M40.
Yeah.
But just put a spritz of Feldgrau on the outside.
I didn't make note of that, but thinking about it now, I was like, yeah, those helmets were pretty dark.
Yeah, they were legit.
Yeah.
But they were black,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny.
If they spoke Czech and were a little bit less orderly, they'd make a great post-war Czech fire team. Because they wore a bunch of the same shit.
Yeah, that's like the only thing I could really pick out. Like, I don't think that one kid would have been wearing his fucking Splinter smock. I don't think he would have been wearing that. I think that would have been stripped off before he got to his camp and all that shit.
Yeah.
But
he didn't even have a tunic. Underneath it was his
shirt.
Shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he kept it on for like warmth. I don't know, but like, I don't see the Danish guys like allowing him to wear that shit out there.
German smocks are so thin, like they don't really provide much. So the parkas are great, but yeah, all that camouflage shit very rarely made it to the camps. So unless you're wearing pants or something, like they couldn't be taken off quickly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's about it. Like the uniforms were actually pretty good. Like you said, there's a good mismatch.
Yeah,
of shit.
That's what I liked a lot about it. One of the kids, I think it's Ludwig, he's just wearing like a black coat that he found. It's not even military.
Well, a lot of those guys were like, that's very late war. Like it's not Volkssturm, but it's kind of like the, hey, get ready.
Okay.
Get out here, and it's a working outfit is what it's called.
Okay.
His hat with the one little button on there. That's like a working outfit. Like the guys that built the West Wall and shit like that, they would have been wearing that. So that was cool too.
The rad.
Yeah, RAD. Yep.
RAD. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where he came from.
Yeah, most likely. Yep.
I'm trying to think. The one like the one who's kind of a dick. He has like he has like a full blown here uniform with the Litzen and all that and the collars. I forgot what his name was.
He the officer. He's a lieutenant.
Yeah, and he had like some kind of armband on.
It said basically Danish mine detail.
Oh, okay, said. Huh. All right. So that's what they gave that to him then. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
So
there's always a de facto POW like leader of the highest rank.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be him in this case.
Okay. Interesting. See, again, this is like shit that you don't ever see in other war films.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very the detail was very good, and they weren't wearing badges, all that shit. There was one kid that was wearing a EK2 ribbon on his I think it was a fucking Panzer wrap. But it might have been just a M45 tunic. Who knows? But like he was wearing that in one scene, and I was like, okay, cool. Like that's passable. But like, yeah, the guys were stripped of everything they had, and that's realistic. You know, like that's they would not have allowed them to wear anything because it's like you guys lost. You're done. Yeah. You're not POWs. You're now workers.
Yeah.
So.
I get, but it's just one of the things I could totally see a movie, fucking up. Also, the depictions of the coastal stuff was pretty cool. We don't just get the main thing you see in it is the Tellermine 42. Mm-hmm. That's like the main one that shows them practicing with. It's the main one they show them disarming. But you also have like Holtz mine, stock mines and S mines. It's like that stuff I never see in movies.
No, and that it was really cool. Like they were disarming them, and they were like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, yeah, okay. It's tense. It is tense. The hedgehogs looked pretty good. The wire looked pretty good. Usually never see wire. I don't think it was legit European wire like of what it would have been back then.
Where do they film it?
Looked pretty good.
Do they film it in Denmark? Yeah,
probably. I think. Yeah. That part where they're right next to one of the coastal battery fortifications. I think that's probably a real one that's there.
Yeah.
In reality, like, and the same thing when they're doing the practice stuff, they're next to like a big command bunker.
Yep.
That's probably real. It looks pretty good, but it's still at the time back in 45, even at the end of the war, it probably still would not have been as overgrown with stuff, like as it is today. But it still looked good. It was still like we're going to utilize this, and they dress the beaches up to look pretty good. They have the Aktun Minen signs out there and stuff.
Well, it was pretty really sparse good. Too. It was like not like you see on Saving Private Ryan where it's just riddled with shit.
No, there's big like, gaps in there.
What do you mean? I played Frontline. There's mines over there.
Yeah, the beach looked good to me. It's like it was sparse, and it's like, yeah, they did put a shitload of mines on there because they expected an amphibious assault at any point on the northern shore, basically, and it didn't happen, and then just left them there. And so now, yeah, these guys have to go out and dismantle 40,000 plus mines on this one fucking beach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot of mines.
Yeah, that's a lot of fucking time to do that.
It was cool how they had Carl, the quote unquote British sergeant, who's actually Danish. They had him kind of be a hard ass because not only did they fuck over his homeland, then he was in the parachute regiment, so he probably saw combat, right?
Yeah,
so that's why he's such a hard ass. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Did you guys notice that like the Danish military towards the end when they were like escorting them, they were wearing Swedish helmets with Swedish rifles?
I did not notice that. Is that a thing that would have been actually correct?
Yes, okay, because a lot of the Danish military fled to Sweden, and they would have picked up a bunch of this shit, and then the Swedes would have been like, "Yep, take it back," and then kind of rearm yourselves and all that shit. So yeah, they're wearing. I was like, why are they not wearing fucking M23s? Oh, most of those were captured and either melted down or used, and then also the rifles, same thing. And so they would have had Swedish stuff at that point. A lot of them. Not all of them, but like a lot of them. So I was like, oh shit. Yeah, pretty cool. Nice little touch.
Cool detail.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
We're just full of energy tonight.
Dude, for those listening, we got off a fucking production that was draining on many levels. So yeah, it's we're still recovering from that. So sorry if this seems a little low energy.
Oh bother, I lost my tail again.
This might be our shortest podcast.
It's a damn good movie, and that's yeah,
it's not bad at all. Like it wasn't like exemplary. It wasn't like shitty. It was like just good. And yeah.
Brian, what else is there to say?
I'm trying to think.
Right?
I don't know. I mean, it didn't resonate with me as much as it did with you guys. I've heard a ton about it forever, but I don't know. Could just be the current state I'm in. Be so tired and shit, but don't know.
All right, that's it. Get Nate in here right now.
Nate, this is where you say your portion. Where you yell at us.
Give a fuck if he's working.
He's out in the fucking swamps.
Oh, he's working. He's not just working.
Oh no, he's working. So, is there
so
an IMDb for this or probably not?
Yeah, Brian, I was just gonna say, pull up an IMFDB if you can.
Jamie. Well, Michael, how many mines did they put on the Atlantic Wall, or were they supposed to? Because there is that scene in The Longest Day where, like Rommel, I think it was the true thing too, where he was like, "You have to install more mines."
I don't know a specific number, but I know that in
right now, shoe mine and T mine.
I know that in Normandy it was supposed to be a certain number, and by the time that D-Day had happened, it was only like 40% complete. So it wasn't nearly as much as the thing. It's funny too. Is like Denmark, out of all of the like Atlanta, like Denmark was very much more fortified than places like France. Which because that's where they started, was up there in the north, and then they would work their way down. So a lot of the first parts of the Atlantic Wall were like Denmark and stuff, and other places along that area that's where you find a lot of gigantic bunkers and stuff like that eventually kind of petered out as you got down to France. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing to note. So it makes sense that these kind of things of this, these massive disarming of these mines would be in places like Denmark, because it would have been much more grand than places like France and some parts of Belgium and the Netherlands.
So did they when they made the Atlantic Wall, it was more like they fortified the ports for the U-boats and all that kind of bullshit, and then linked them through these
Yeah.
ad hoc fortifications. Because I know we had talked
Yeah.
about Omaha in the past and how like a lot of the units in certain areas that are long enough, they just made shit up, and like they used the rule book a little bit, but they just like kind of figured it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, when the Atlantic Wall thing first happened, it was they started, at the top and they went down. They started in Norway and then in Denmark, and in those places you will find like, especially in photos, you'll see like really elaborate stuff, like just fields of wire and crazy fortifications, huge, regal bow type stuff, and the big coastal guns pointed out and stuff like that. And that's what they wanted to do for the entire, channel. They wanted to do that for France and all the way down to Spain and stuff like that. But as things went on, obviously, materials, manpower, and all that just depleted completely. So by the time that they were getting to France and through, like, there are places in France that are pretty heavily fortified, like Battery Tote up around like Pas de Calais and stuff like that. There's some big stuff there. But really, once you get down into the places where there was actually a lot of fighting, like Calvados and Cherbourg and places like that, it's pretty sparse compared to the more northern stuff. So it definitely did peter out as things went on. But like I said, for places like Denmark here, where these guys are working, it would have been pretty populated with shit that they had to remove.
It's funny too that they were sparsely populated. There were not a lot of defenses in that area of Normandy, because there was that raid in 1942. I know it was east of Le Havre, but on that radar station. So, and there was also that raid that we talked about a long time ago, Aquitaine. So there were small raids on the coast. It's a matter of time, like you said.
Yeah, those raids, they could easily get in. There were places like where those raids would happen, where they would then, build up the. They would want to make sure that doesn't happen again. Like, Aquitaine, which happened on what would become Omaha Beach. That little sector, they eventually put a big barricade there so no one could sail in there anymore, like how they did when Aquitaine happened. But it's just interesting. There's gaps and stuff like that, little stuff. But originally they did want it to be a long, continuous, just stream of fortifications. But basic stuff you would see in a video game. That whole thing where it's just like endless bunkers as far as you can see. They wanted to do that, but they couldn't.
So a giant, like, clone trooper helmeted bunker coming out of a cliff with two MG42s facing out of it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I always thought that's something ironic, is that movies and video games, they like to depict this stuff how the Germans wanted it depicted. They wanted people to believe. I've read lots of memoirs of German soldiers and stuff who would go to the Atlantic Wall, like Franz Gockel, Alois Reckers, and Heinrich Severlo, and they said that when they got there, they were insanely disappointed by what they saw. They were like, we thought we were going to see what we saw, in the newsreels of Battery Tote, the giant fortresses and stuff, and they just have a couple, little bunkers that are like the size of a house. So,
and here come the Allies. Like,
yeah, exactly. But I did think they didn't really show much coastal fortifications, but for what they did show in the movie, I'm pretty sure that's real stuff that's up there around Denmark, because I haven't studied the Atlantic Wall of Denmark much, but when I have looked at stuff, they are pretty gigantic. They're much bigger than what you see in Normandy.
Yeah, and it's funny because they're nothing on the East Coast, which makes sense because they didn't have to worry about the defenses of the East Coast of Denmark, but the Atlantic side was all that mattered. Did it extend up into Norway, or they really didn't care because the fjords and everything?
No, Norway was where it started.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it did start. It started all the way up in Norway by the I forget what that's called, where it's like that area between the tip of England and Norway. But that's kind of where it all began, was up there.
The Arctic Sea is up that way.
Yeah, I think it's like the tip of the North Sea, I think, is where it's. And then there are a number of islands through there, too, where the Germans would build like little fortresses and such.
Well, there's the famous British islands of Jersey that were occupied.
Yep, same thing. So what are they called? Guernsey and Jersey, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
They have a TV show about their occupation during the war.
Really? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a British production. I'll have to see. They had a few episodes or like a season or two, but it starts with them being occupied and ends with them being liberated. Obviously,
Nice.
but you get the full story.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm gonna look up where they filmed this and see if like what exact area they utilized. Let's see here. Production began in July 2014 and ended in August 2014. The film was shot at historically authentic locations, yeah, including the I can't pronounce that and areas of Varde. No, dude, it's not gonna happen. It's one of those. It's one of those words that has letters that don't exist in our English language. Oxborledre.
There you go. Gorlame.
Yeah, it's like that. It's
Grazie.
You gotta roll. You gotta roll the Z.
Okay, I'm gonna make my my Google pronounce it for me. Let's see here. Oxbolladren. So
yes.
Yeah, and Varde.
I know it well. Yes.
Oh, this is interesting. The use of the historical beaches led to the discovery of a real live mine during the production.
Weird.
So
Wow.
what we were just talking about, people, not being able to get all these little bastards,
Yeah, right.
and then discovering them way the
Just
hell
walking
later.
on the beach. Thank God I don't weigh as much as a fucking vehicle.
Which actor found it? Like, this
Yeah, the one that's not in the movie.
is a really awesome prop. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I just imagine you
Very rusty. It's kind of
Yeah.
looking.
Oh, that thing would it? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Clunk, clunk, boom. All right.
They still find artifacts along, the English coast all the time. Or the French coast and around that area, the whole channel. Along Omaha, the thing they find the most are old life belts, American life belts, pulled out of the sand.
That's lovely.
Interesting. There's that in England. There's a ship that was sunk that was full of ammunition in 1944, and it's like 20 miles off the coast of Kent, I believe. And if it ever goes up, then it's like it's gonna be really bad, like equivalent of like half a Hiroshima. So there is some stuff that's lying around the UK. I know that
will this war ever end?
Yeah, right. Well, I know that that guy Mark Felton Productions just had a video about cluster munitions during the Second World War, and how the last one was found because the Germans dropped them on England at different points. Was found in like 2015, and the last guy that was killed by ordnance in the UK was like 1958.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's out there.
I think there's a German U-boat sunk somewhere, maybe in the Mediterranean, that has a whole bunch of mercury inside it.
It's off the coast of Norway. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I was totally wrong.
There's one with uranium, but they're both really deep, and both like around them, nothing is living. I think the uranium one is less. It's more of a story, but the mercury one is pretty toxic. And they might encapsulate it, but they do keep an eye on it. There's a few nuclear subs that have sunk over the last 60 years that they keep an eye on. They have like dives every year to check levels. But yeah, it's crazy.
We're gonna go back into our fat man and little boy discussion.
That was the Germans were sending U-boats full of very important raw materials to Japan at the end of the war, so that they can do stuff. And there was a lot of U-boats that, or not a lot, but I think there were 2 or 3, a handful that ended up like, arriving in Japan right at the tail end or right before the war ended. Because that's how long the trek took, 3 or 4 months. And the Germans actually had it for U-boats operating out of, I think it was Vietnam or Thailand, one of those ports. But there actually were cases where American sailors in the Pacific sank German U-boats, which is just insane. And they were like, when Germans started popping up on the surface, we thought we were going mad.
Fucking fronts colliding, Jesus.
Right.
But yeah, do we want to do IMFDB on this thing?
Yeah, there is one, so I can share it, or somebody else wants to.
If you want to share it.
December 2015 released. Wow, it's a great Christmas movie. So we got the Bergman 1910-21.
I don't know anything about that, but interesting looking gun.
One of Nate's favorite pistols.
It is?
Oh yeah.
So why isn't he here? Well, I know why he's not here, but like, god damn it.
He's playing Creature from the Black Lagoon tonight. So, yeah, they're very cool. I think that they used a few of these in The Mandalorian, at least the base.
It looks like the springboard for a Star Wars gun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, early semi-automatics,
Mm-hmm.
and then Weebly Mark 6. Weebly.
Yeah, those British assholes.
Sume.
No, KP-31. Nice.
They're great. Looks like a coffin mag.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's got the coffin mag in there. Yep.
It's a great look.
Yeah.
We have yet to do any finished movies. We'll have to get to one eventually. Good old Dennison. His patches look glued on. I know they were sewn, and I know that was a look during the war, but it was very, not used much. That tunic.
Hey, dude, at least for this movie, because there's a scene in Band of Brothers where it's towards the end of the war. It's at episode 9, 1945, and two French soldiers step out and
Tom
execute.
Hanks?
Yeah, it's not Tom Hanks. Executes a couple of them, and they're wearing French uniforms that look like they're from 1940. At least with this movie, they show that this guy has been given, has other uniforms from another country, which how it would have been for these guys.
So, the Danes used the Krag before the war, if I remember correctly. And then they used the Mauser model 1896 as a holdover, or do they continue to use that?
That's the one they got from Sweden, and it was it was a holdover, and it was not a lot of them. It was just some that had fled to Sweden and then gone back, and that's how they're wearing Swedish helmets as well in these scenes.
Interesting. What did they continue using the Krag after the war, or what did they switch to eventually? I have no idea.
I think they did, and then I don't know what they probably went to the
Wait, did
they used the M1. They used the M1.
Yeah, there are Danish M1s. Yep. So
they use a lot of that shit post war, and this is just this is like an interim holdover kind of.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, the FN-49 comes to mind, but I can't remember.
No, they adapted the M1. They didn't. Okay. They didn't. It was Luxembourg, Belgium,
Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt and
Venezuela.
Yeah, the South American countries. But it wasn't because most people were using the M1 and then they went to the FAL immediately.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all the Marshall Program countries. They got all the surplus from the war.
Right.
Yeah, I've never heard of Swedish carbines. Or sorry, Danish carbines though. Definitely Danish Koreans, but that's interesting.
They existed. They're just very hard to get.
Yeah. And what was interesting too is that, or not kind of interesting at least, is that the 1896s were also, the Swedish ones especially, were kind of used in the Winter War a little bit.
Very, very, very small amounts.
By Swedish volunteers, yeah.
I was just going to say, by Swedish volunteers, and it was a logistical nightmare. But there was a very, very small amount of them used in the Winter War and the mostly continuation war, and it was a lot of rear echelon guys.
Yep. Have you ever seen Talienhauta? Or no?
Nope.
We'll get to it, but they have a great scene with Swedish volunteers in Finland until they didn't understand anything, or language-wise. But anyway,
yeah, they also kept them on the rear of the lines because they didn't want them to get killed. So,
not all the time, but anyway, interesting to see the influx of stuff and how they helped out other countries at the end of the war. Surprising you see a Kennedy 8 in this theater.
Yeah, never would have guessed.
Right. They did the late war version too of the Tellermine. With the little top bit, because they had an earlier pressure plate that looked a little different.
Where it looked just like a dome.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that CGI?
No.
I don't know. Honestly.
That's practical. I just don't know what they could be, just the bottoms of pots behind them.
Yeah, at what point,
I'm really glad they got the Holtz mine. Yeah, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a terrifying son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to find that thing.
Right.
So that's a cool little detail too, is that when they put these little Death's Head flags.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh yeah, we're not recording this like Nate always does, are we?
Nope.
It's all right. It'd be a lame podcast.
Next time.
It's a good movie, a lame podcast.
Yeah, the Stock mine, man, that fucking thing.
Yeah, it's again something you usually never see in movies, and it's like shit. They did a good job with the wires and everything. Like that's so cool. They're having to like take the wires off the top of them.
Was the teller mines on like logs only a Normandy thing then? Or was
That's a Normandy thing. Yeah,
interesting.
that is a strictly Rommel thing.
Hmm.
Is that design? So yeah, you wouldn't see stuff like that here.
So I guess the Rommel's asparagus or whatever it was also
That's
purely a Rommel.
Rommel's
thing, too.
asparagus refers to usually refers to the logs that they put up in fields to take down gliders, but it also does sometimes refer to that. Like I've seen instances where they call it that. You know the
oh really, the mines?
yeah, the logs with the mines on them. Yeah.
Did they have an actual term like by the book or whatever, or just the log?
They're just
defenses?
I forgot what the German word is, but they just call them mine posts or the what like the ramps. That's called Hemmelbalk, I think, or Hambalk. I don't know what the English phrase is for it, but usually they're just called like log ramps, is what I usually see them called. That's designed to basically flip a landing craft if it comes, within contact with it. And then they thought, oh well, we'll do one better than that. We'll put some fucking mines on it. So if it comes in contact, if it goes, we'll only tip it over, but it'll blow it the fuck up. And so yeah, there are instances where you see the log ramps with the mines on them, but then there are some where they don't have mines on them. But yeah, then there are just straight up logs with mines on the tops of them.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Just improvisation.
And those are faced inwards, right?
They're not pointed outwards, they're pointed inwards. So like if it's like this, the landing craft is coming towards it, it tips it over. Or it like goes up the ramp and then it hits
and then
the mine.
it was designed to like if it's trying to back out, it blows it up and blows the engine and everything, right?
Oh yeah. Or if it's just if it happens to go up that ramp and then come in contact with with that mine, it would blow it up. There's some cases where they would strap like 4 or 5 mines onto them.
Yeah.
So it'd be like bam, 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 bam if it went up it.
Wow.
Fucking
Are there any
nightmare.
cases of it actually working?
Oh yeah.
Normandy, or?
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. The number of the what are they? LCVPs were scuttled that way, and you can see photos of them sitting on like the shore after D-Day, completely like blown in half.
Wow. Huh.
Which is funny because a lot of people think that those Higgins boats are made of steel. They're actually mostly made of plywood. That's one thing that they think because they're painted that bluish gray color that they're made of steel, but they're actually made of plywood, so they could just atomize those fucking things.
That's why there's like none left anymore because they all rotted away.
Yeah.
Huh. Very interesting. Because the way that you hear about Normandy, they're just like, oh well, they went in at low tide, so that it was fine, but then it just turned to terrible.
Dude, the tide rises throughout the day.
Yeah,
exactly. By 11 a.m. the tide had risen completely, and boats were still coming in at that point.
All the NVB guys were dead by that point, so the shoe mines, these were very devastating during the war.
Yeah, so were these. Yep.
Oh,
the S mines. Yeah.
At least you could detect an S mine. There was another nasty German mine. It was like a metal mine that was like a meter long by like 2 or 3 inches, and it was anti-tank or anti-vehicle. So you can catch something like a truck or whatever. They're very nasty. You see them sometimes. But yeah. A lot of mines.
Yeah, land of mine.
Yes.
I think that's the American or English distribution title for it. Apparently the title it was released under is Under the Sand. So I don't know why they decided to change it, but yeah,
Under the Sand.
Yeah, it was Unter dem Sand. Yeah, is the actual title of it.
Yeah, the Danish looked definitely different than the actual title, because there's always a relation in some way, shape, or form, and it definitely looks more like Under the Sand than Land of Mine.
Land of Mine's a clever title though, because it's it not only does it the land of mines, but it's also it ties in with the theme of the film. Yeah, good movie. Cinematography really good. I thought everything looked really nice. The camera work and all that was good.
Good B-roll too.
Yeah.
Should probably get forward with our ratings.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea. Not much more to say.
Well, since I think I liked it most than everyone, I'll start. Like I say, I think it covers something that has not been talked about a lot, and that is always a big positive. And it does it in a very interesting and unique way. I thought it was well written. I liked the directing. Everything else I said, all the details. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Decent.
Yeah. So Moik.
Yeah. Like you said, it's just it's a really good film. It didn't change my life, but it also was like worth the watch for sure. And good cinematography, good details. Not really overdone, which is a good thing. Very uncommon with European cinema.
Mm-hmm.
It just is what it is, and it told a story that nobody probably would have even thought about unless this was made, which I respect. So 7.5 out of 10.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I heard a lot about this over the years. It definitely is worth watching. Again, to me, it just seems a little repetitive, but it's a very cool subject. And it's cool how you see all the different minds and everything. And 100% worth a watch. So if you're looking for a war film that's a little bit out of the ordinary, definitely check it out. That being said, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So,
all right. Solid film.
So, putting the scores into the computer that will tell us if the mine Michael's working on is going to blow up, we get a 7.5 out of 10. So, it's a very decent movie.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
For sure. Yep.
Nice.
All right, should we stop recording?
Well, I guess, yeah. Final thoughts, Mike?
I'm good.
Don't make movies. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a rating. Otherwise, Mel Gibson won't stop screaming. If you like this content, make sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. If you want to directly support our work, make sure to check out our Patreon. All these links are in the description below. Until the next time, Scuttlebutt out.